Fallout from the Oshuane major order continues to happen within the Helldivers community, with now comments posting blame on some for seeking out glory kills instead of focusing on the task at hand. We've also right now got a chance to get a 2-for-1 in-game, and we've also got more issues hitting the known issues board. If you want to help support the channel, please consider hitting subscribe and ringing the notifications bell as we turn our attention to that resounding failure and more from Helldivers. I got DM'd this TikTok from a member of our Discord by a creator named 𝗛𝗲𝗹𝗶𝘃𝗲𝗿𝘀, and I've got to be honest, I'm very unfamiliar with TikTok. I'm not on that platform, but anyway, this one outlines our past major order failure, but also some of the sentiment and community statements behind this one. So it's kind of short. Let's check it out and discuss it on the flip side.
Helldivers are upset that we failed the last major order and are blaming everyone who killed Hive Lords. Now, the last video that I posted was breaking down the best stratagems that literally trivialize killing the Hive Lord, and my comment section got absolutely riddled with salty Helldivers.
But the major order was to collect samples, not to fight.
I blame people hunting Hive Lords for the failure of the major order.
You may have killed 15 Hive Lords, but where you contribute beating the Hive Lord instead of getting samples. Low-level Helldivers were busy getting
That's not what the major order was. Thanks for not contributing. You're right, I'm sorry for killing the Hive Lord, and then continuing the mission and grabbing samples and extracting. With the stratagems I listed before, the mission is harder than killing the Hive Lord. We killed this Hive Lord in 5 minutes and then went on our way completing the mission. We killed this Hive Lord and then completed everything on the map and only had 4 deaths. I killed this one with low-level randoms and then completed the mission. Here's another one, here's another, and another. The reason we lost the major order was not because of us. It was because of Helldivers like this. Instead of killing the Hive Lord first because they thought reinforcements would be too low or it would be too hard or because they just couldn't do it, they decided to ignore it. But guess what? It doesn't ignore you. Then as you're holding 40 samples, you get flung out of bounds, leaving those precious samples in the sandy void. Collecting samples was the major order, but it wasn't our mission. Did you ignore the mission and just collect samples? Because there's still a reason that we're on this planet. Did you lower the difficulty below 7 so that you wouldn't see any Hive Lords? Because that means you got less samples. Being ridiculed by people who are arguably making it harder for themselves and everyone else, and then being blamed for failing our major order is hilarious. It is Helldivers like this that don't just make us fail, they make the experience not fun.
Alright, I honestly haven't seen this side of the discussion about our failure, blaming those that were off killing Hive Lords, because like this creator, me and my squad did pretty much the same. We went after the Hive Lord first, took him out, and then did the mission, grabbing the samples, because if you try to ignore him, he just keep ratcheting up the pressure. He keep just breaching through as you try to complete the POIs, even showing up at extraction, belly flopping down on top of you and your squad. Now, if the Hive Lord breached at extraction, at that point the entire mission was in serious danger of nobody extracting. So that meant no matter how few or many samples you had on you that you were hoping to contribute to the major order, you were about to not be able to make it up onto that shuttle. And that meant nobody was going home, and that meant 0 samples were going back to the Super Destroyer. Also, we tended to see much the same as what this gentleman was saying in the TikTok. If we held on to our samples and tried to run the mission, as somebody that was holding them would get blasted into orbit, they'd end up out of bounds, we'd lose a player to disconnects, the guy with the most samples would always get ragdolled while over in the Mega Nest and end up getting tossed down the Bile-Titan hole. Of course, all those samples were then lost. And if you know, you know, there's a million things that could go wrong. But I'd like to get your feedback on the sentiment that it was the Hive Lord killers, or maybe it was the Dragon Slayers that caused the failure of this major order. Of course, I've got tons of thoughts, but I want to hear yours. Drop a comment, and also check out 𝗛𝗲𝗹𝗶𝗃𝗲𝗿𝘀 on TikTok. I'll throw a link to this one down in the video description. What I will say about that MO down on Oshuane, and of course those sample collections, is this. We were being tasked with collecting 350 million common and 200 million rare samples in total. Now on average, we were seeing, what, 200,000 divers online? Maybe sometimes more, sometimes less than that. And of course, not all of those were hitting the MO planet and trying for samples, but let's roll with the simple math here. That meant that each and every one of those divers had to collect 1,750 common and 1,000 rare samples. That's a lot of samples per diver, not taking into consideration failed missions, disconnects, janky stuff going on in game like the shuttle going underground, making extraction impossible, etc., etc. And I've seen some statements out there like, well, if you back the difficulty down to a level 4, collecting that many samples would have been so easy. But fellas, I've got to tell you that even if all of those divers that were online were all hitting Oshuane and were all down on level 4 dives and all snatching up samples like a Dyson vacuum, we'd still have been hurting. I've seen some math and sentiment around the community that it was absolutely possible, but again, that would be a great question for chat. Was it doable? Was it impossible? Maybe a 50-50 chance of pulling it off? I don't know. Drop a comment and let's see where the community rests with this one. Moving next to the current task at hand, and with 4.5 days left on this current major order, we are falling behind and quickly, but there is a chance to pull this one off if the Helldivers will stop chasing after some of the blinky things the Game Master keeps waving in front of us. Now, I've spoken about it before, but planet rates are heavily impacted by number of divers who are not only logged on and in-game, but also hitting the specific objective. That means as more and more divers start logging on and spreading across the map, it becomes incrementally harder to achieve results on a planet. Even though you can't see it in-game because the UI is off the screen, Gacrux has over 70,000 divers on it right now trying to liberate the planet. That planet is also a Gambit planet, which means it is the planet that is supplying the bug assault on 𝗛𝗃𝗃 4, which is why you see those arrows traveling from Gacrux over to 𝗛𝗃𝗃 on your galactic map. 𝗛𝗃𝗃 has over 40,000 divers on it, which means, in simple terms, our forces are right now divided. If those 𝗛𝗃𝗃 divers all hopped in their ships, headed over to Gacrux and started putting in work there, our rates would be boosted on Gacrux. Remember, the more percentage of divers hitting the objective versus the ratio of those logged on and how it works. Plus, there's a bonus here. Gacrux is the Gambit planet to 𝗛𝗃𝗃, meaning if we can secure Gacrux in the specific time frame before losing 𝗛𝗃𝗃, our victory on Gacrux will not only earn us that planet, it will earn us both planets, adding Gacrux and 𝗛𝗃𝗃 to our needed 7 planets defended. There's still a chance here to pull this one off out there, divers, but the player shift from 𝗛𝗃𝗃 needs to happen immediately. Of course, that battle on Gacrux will be in some way impacted by the current endgame issues, and as of yesterday, we saw the known issues board updated with new items like the extraction shuttle clipping through terrain, preventing extraction, Helldivers getting reinforced onto the top of caves, Rupture Warriors not correctly tracking moving clients when attacking, and the nuke nursery drill landing on top of the caves, making them inaccessible. And before we move on, that mention of the Rupture Warriors is for the host, who cannot counter or block the attacks from those warriors as they pop up out of the ground, meaning you're going to have to bring them out before that with things like explosives, gas, and arc, or else expect to get turned into a pincushion each and every time those warriors breach the ground. It's also very important to note that the massive PC issues like the freezes, the stutters, and the full PC lockups are not mentioned here on the known issues board. We've even seen the CEO, Shams Jorjani, admitting he has the same PC locking up, forcing a shutdown issue on his own PC rig at home. Something needs to be added here to the board, acknowledging the poor PC performance, and as a community, we need some sort of roadmap to when updates will be introduced to the game, because the performance is really sketchy right now, and it's been that way ever since Into the Unjust was launched. I know we've been going through some heavy Helldivers topics, but let's have a bit of fun here at the end with this Reddit post asking, all right, which 792,000 of you didn't play the tutorial, and they've clipped a screenshot showing only 95.6% of players have completed basic training, which might explain some of those accidentals we saw mounting up on the current bug planets. But I didn't think to skip basic when I went through it back in 2024, but I have heard that there were some issues with players locking up and not being able to play it through. But yeah, for those of you 792,000 out there, expect a visit very soon from your local democracy officer. All right. What do you think of that blame game situation from our past Major Order? Also, if you're on PC, how's performance been for you on the new update? And final question, can we pull off the Gacrux Gambit? Any and all of those topics are up for discussion, so make sure to drop a comment, as we know Arrowhead does read your feedback, and this could be a great place for them to see your thoughts. Remember to hit subscribe and ring that notifications bell to stay up to date on all my latest uploads. Thanks again to all of our current channel members, for without your support, content like this would not be possible. And until the next one, this is LtBuzzLitebeer signing off.